Hello, BookTube. Welcome to Iliad reading update. I have been reading the Iliad, Martin Hammond's prose translation, and for the first six books, I've made a part one. In this video, I'll be covering books 7 to 12. But before I get to that, let me tell you some history with this book. So, for the first 12 books, I read this translation, and from book 7 to book 12, it was all going smoothly. The flow was there, but after book 12 I suddenly got bored from this particular translation, and then I took like a 10 to 14 day break where I was reading other stuff. I read a Bridgerton novel. Eternal Reading mentioned a short story called The Town Manager, and I read like two-thirds of the short story collection that was Thomas Lugati's Teatro Grotesco. But after that, I saw Mike from Riffraff's Reading Renaissance make those Iliad videos, and from those videos, I got the motivation to continue reading this book. So then I moved along, read chapter 13 from the same prose translation, and again, things felt just a bit boring to me. And that is not a comment on the book per se, but on this particular translation. So then a couple of days passed where I was reading more short stories in from that collection, and then I felt I should get back to the Iliad reading. And so what I did was something that I should have done sooner was I have a Kindle. My friend has given me a Kindle, and in that I loaded up the Figel's translation, verse translation, and ever since then I have been getting back into the flow of reading the book. So for anyone who's having issues reading a work that is especially old and has many translations, I would recommend try another translation and see if that changes your relation with the book and how the reading experience is going. Before I continue into the play by play of what each book, what the events that occur in the each book, I would like to say that I found the Iliad disgusting, and I don't mean that in a moral sense or in the sense that it's of bad quality. I mean that it's, as Mike says, it's very visceral. You are getting explicit details of spears and bodies and stones being thrown at each other, and bone and flesh and blood and dust. And when it's written in a particular, especially later on when I started reading the verse, uh, yeah, it gets very squeamish at times. So it is a very disgusting book. So now moving on to books 7 to 12 of the Iliad, I'll be referring to this newspaper where after each book I've been writing down the main events that I feel sort of stuck in my mind, or that I felt just like to write a summary of what happens in each book. So in book 7, we get Hector v Ajax for the first time. And these are two epic warriors, one on the Greek side, the other on the Trojan, and an epic battle takes place, only to be cut off by the lack of light. Night comes on, and both parties decide that we should not fight at night, and at night is peacetime, and uh, you know, wartime activities should be held at night. I'm sure both parties will adhere to those regulations. Paris then denies the offer that I'm not going to give Helen back, but I'm going to give you more possessions, other things that I have. That obviously gets denied by Agamemnon, but both of them come to a uh, agreement that we should clear the dead bodies off the battlefield. Then the Greeks, they build a fortification, a wall near the ships, and Poseidon gets very angry because this fortification is made without sacrifice and without prayer to the gods. So he gets very angry at the end of the book. And this fortification, now that I'm thinking about the book again, this fortification is used like a reference point in the books that come forward, as in like, this is the fortification, the Trojans are here, okay. In the next book, the Trojans are here, okay, the Trojans are at the fortification, the Trojans have breached the fortification. So that comes as a very interesting device, if you will, to tell you how close the Trojans are to the ships. So book 8 starts with the personification of dawn, sort of letting her robes fall out to let the sunlight over the sky. And book 8 is a self-contained day within itself. We see Zeus sitting in Mount Ida, looking over the battlefield, that's the flow of war that goes up and down during this day. Athena and Hera, seeing the Greeks not fare so well, they try to interrupt in between, but Zeus stops them with the help of Iris, telling them that they better watch out and not interrupt them. And then yeah, just fighting keeps going on until darkness stops the fight, and both parties say nighttime is not for war, so we'll stay peaceful at night, and no funny business to be done at night. And I'm sure both parties will adhere to those regulations. Now, in book 9, Agamemnon, he sort of voices his opinion that maybe we should leave. And note that he has done this before, I think in book 2 or book 3. And since I've read certain books ahead as well, I think he does it again in book 14 or book 15, something like that. And here Diomedes calls him a coward, which was interesting to see. And this book is a book of negotiation, or sort of they send a party out to Achilles, who is camping near his ships and not participating in the war, and they send this party to try to convince him to come back and join the battle. Now Odysseus, Phoenix, Ajax, and maybe one more go towards Achilles' camp to try to convince him. And Odysseus starts. He talks about all the material wealth and different things that he can get. Achilles will be awarded that Agamemnon promises to give to Achilles, and also he plays for pride, Achilles' pride, that he'll be the man to slay Hector. Isn't that something that you want, something that will be associated with you? So you should come and fight. But Achilles denies, citing an irony that I did not see, but when he pointed it out, it just sort of I started laughing because I was like, this is so funny. So Achilles makes the case that we all have come here to because someone has stolen a wife. Paris has stolen Menelaus' wife Helen, and that is why we have come here to fight. And then he points out that when they had come here and ransacked a town, and Achilles got his own concubine Chryses, and Agamemnon got a concubine which was the priest of Apollo's daughter. The priest of Apollo came asking for his daughter back, and Agamemnon denied it, and the priest then invoked Apollo to get a plague going on the Greek fleet. So Agamemnon had to give the daughter back and then take Achilles' concubine. So he points that out, that how are we fighting here for a stolen wife when my own concubine was stolen? Now, obviously, Menelaus and Helen are husband and wife, and Achilles is talking about a concubine which he sort of got as a prize of war. So it's different, it's drastically different, but there is still some kind of irony there. Although I don't know how much Menelaus and Helen are as lovers. Like, I don't know whether their marriage was a sort of political kingdom thing or whether there was genuine love there. But yeah, the point he makes is still very strong. After that, Phoenix, who's like his second father, tries to convince him, and he makes this allusion or reference. Should we use proper words? He makes this reference to Meleager and the boar, which I thankfully knew a little bit about because I read Ovid's Metamorphoses, and I sort of like I got the reference there. And then again, Achilles denies the request, and then Ajax just leaves the little taunting words, and they all go back to the Greek fleets. Then starts book 10, the Dolonia night operations. The night is anxious and everyone is awake, and people think that the regulations that they had agreements they had come to, suddenly are not worth honoring. And I was wondering why this rubbed me the wrong way. And I guess one thing is that, like, I know of the quote, all is fair in love and war, but I was thinking of what I thought of this book. And whenever you think of like this book, me particularly, I thought these were like really like honorable soldiers, virtue, honor, and all these things. And just looking at this book number 10, and I'm like, what are these guys doing? So what happens is the Trojan side send a spy called Dolon to go over and see what's going on in the Greek fleet. And the Greek fleet decided that Diomedes and Odysseus should also go over and see just what's going on over the uh, say Trojan side. Now, if they were just spying, I would be fine with that. But what they do is that, so it's a very funny scene. So Dolon is coming here, and these two are coming here, and there are just dead bodies on the ground. So these two lie dead. This guy goes past. They get up and catch him, get some information, kill him, and then they ambush a Thracian camp and get like great horses from there. And the whole time I'm reading this, I'm like, this is not fair. You guys are cheating. This is not fair. Although in the book there was a very specific phrase in page 160 that I would like to read. So this is the part where Odysseus and Diomedes are lying down and Dolon is running past. Uh, it goes, but when his distance from them was the width of a day's ploughing by mules, and mules are better than oxen at pulling the jaunted plough through deep fallow land, they ran after him, and he stopped at the sound of their feet. And I just found that very interesting. Him just that line. We all know that mules are better than oxen. Am I right, guys? I don't know. That just seemed like a very stand-up comedy routine, like making very observational humor kind of thing that feels very. I mean, I understand what it's doing, but feels very odd reading it so far in the future. So then comes book 11, which I would say is the book of getting hurt, because all prominent fighters on the Greek side get hurt. Like Agamemnon gets hurt, Diomedes gets hurt, I think Odysseus also gets hurt, or rather, Odysseus is like surrounded by a bunch of Trojans. There is a lot of divine intervention. Apollo is. So I got a phone call when I was mentioning divine intervention. So I don't know what to make of that. But the divine intervention that takes place is that Apollo is protecting Hector, Athena protects Odysseus, and Zeus sort of scares off Ajax. And so a lot of fighting takes place in this book. And as I said, everyone's getting hurt. And there's a guy, healer, Machon. I don't know how to call it, Machon. I don't know. I've said all different kinds of combinations for him, but he gets hurt and or is sort of surrounded, and Nestor saves him, and is sort of taking him back to the fleets. And I guess one could consider this the book of the setup as well, because this sets up Patroclus going into war for, and then eventually dying, which causes Achilles to come to war and even and kill Hector. Achilles sees this guy, this healer, Machaon, come back and sends Patroclus to just check is that Machaon, what's going on. And when Patroclus goes there, Nestor sort of gives like a old person, back in my day we did this, and now I'm old, I can't do, but it's on you, Patroclus, and sort of moves him to persuade Achilles to get into war, or if not, uh, tells him, why don't you don Achilles' armor and come into the battlefield? People from afar will think Achilles is back and, cause some kind of psychological uh, issue for them. And, you will boost up our morale, boost down theirs. And this is where the first time it is mentioned, I think, for Patroclus to join the war in Achilles' armor. And then on the way back, he's going back to Achilles, but then he sees another Eurypylos. He sees that guy and starts tending to his and sort of tending to his needs. He's injured, so I'm assuming he's doing some sort of healing to him, and that's how the book ends. So everyone is injured, and the Trojans are coming closer, and Nestor sort of urges Patroclus to sort of enter into the war. So this is, as I said, could be seen as a book of setup. And then in book 12, so in book 12, Hector and the Trojans are advancing, and they see an omen, a crow or an eagle fly over, and they ignore that omen, and they reach the fortification that Poseidon was so angry about. And once they've reached the wall, the book sort of goes over all the different ways they breach the wall, the different war strategy on how to attack the wall, and how they eventually conquer the wall. One thing I noticed here, one thing that was said in, I think it was Kenneth Rexroth's Iliad sort of review, that, or somewhere or the other that I read that how in the Iliad, Homer is sort of saying, "Oh, back in the day, we are sort of people were so things were so much better," and that's what I noticed in this book where uh, multiple times he sort of uses this device where he's like Hector lifted this heavy stone, which if you take like 10 men today and try to lift them, they wouldn't be even able to hold it for even a minute or something like that. So that is something that I noticed in book 12 a lot. Was I think it happens 3 4 times where he sort of compares the people in the Iliad fighting versus to current day, current day for Homer, and how there is a discrepancy in the kind of strength and how strength and well, that is all for now for part 2. Book 13, I read in verse and have been reading book 13, I read in prose and have been reading the Fagel's verse for 14, 15, 16, 17. And I've just reached book 18, so I'll be putting up a part 3 as soon as I'm done with book 18. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.